Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good evening, everyone. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. I start with the prayer of the Prophet Moses. My Lord, uplift my heart for me and make my task easy and remove the impediment from my tongue so people may understand my speech. I am a Palestinian, a son of a Nakba survivor from 1948. I want to talk to you by being the bridge from Gaza, from Palestine, here to Birmingham today. So my family themselves have sacrificed at least 10 people in the resistance, and actually 4 of them have been killed in the genocide in the West Bank, killed by the Israelis and even killed by the PA. As I said, my father was a Nakba survivor. He lived in 1948 and he saw the occupation firsthand. But what I really want to do is tell you what the people of Gaza are saying and thinking. Because my journey started about 25 years ago when I was at university. And within days of starting, Occupy Palestine would be the center stage in the world, in what would later be known as the Second Intifada, the uprising. It was a brutal campaign of terror launched by the Jewish entity against the indigenous Palestinians. Over 52 months, 3,000 Palestinians were murdered, including one of them was my cousin. This set the stage for my first public call for military intervention against the Israeli occupation. In the years that followed, and in particular, the brutal wars against Gaza from 2008 onwards, thousands of people were murdered. I was among the few who never wavered in calling for military intervention. The first live-stream genocide in history took the global masses on a crash course on the murderous foundations of the Zionist entity. Social media became the battlefield where Zionist narratives were buried one after another. Terms and events like the Balfour Declaration, the Nakba, the Intifada became everyday language. People did a 180. They were no longer buying the propaganda of Israel that it has the right to defend itself, and instead were backing the right of the resistance to defend themselves and liberate Palestine. Gaza has been the exposer. Empty slogans of international law and human rights were laid bare. The UN, the ICC, the ICJ were used as a cover to distract us while the US and Israel perpetrated a Holocaust on Gaza. As US Senator Lindsey Graham confessed, the Rome Statute doesn't apply to Israel, or the United States, or France, or Germany, or Great Britain, because it wasn't conceived of to come after us. That's his own words. We in the West were facing the bitter truth that the global North was orchestrating this genocide. For the global South, and specifically the Muslim world, there were no shocks. This was the only truth we ever knew. Not only had the world presided over the occupation of Palestine in the first place, but in the last 3 decades in particular, we witnessed the Bosnian and Rwandan genocides take place under the watch of the UN. Millions were killed in Iraq and in Afghanistan in illegal wars, and civil war ravaged Syria and Yemen. The call on the streets of the Muslim world demanded an end to normalization, to cease trading with the occupation, and to end diplomatic relations. And the Muslim rulers, the regimes, they did respond. They responded by violently dispersing protesters, arresting them, and torturing them. Some thought that the first live-stream genocide would force the regimes to act, but instead they revealed themselves as not only neutral observers, but as active participants in genocide, offering words of condemnation while fueling and sustaining the genocidal machinery. None have been more critical of the Muslim rulers than the Gazans themselves, and I want you to pay attention to that. They've called out the betrayal in an endless stream of videos. In one video that really stands out to me, a young Gazan boy, young man, he looks at a pack of dogs and he says, "By Allah, you have more chivalry, dignity, and honor than the Arab rulers." That really sums up how the people of Gaza have concluded what the Muslim and Arab rulers are. Despite their total rejection of the Muslim regimes and rulers, the people of Gaza have not ceased in calling on the Muslim world. It is no exaggeration to say I could play you hundreds of videos from Gaza saying, "O nation of 2 billion, where are you?" Literally, I could find you hundreds. The real focus is on those with the means to act. In one extremely powerful video, a young medical professional in Gaza says in translation, "I hope this video reaches all the followers of the Islamic Ummah, the nation, the Muslim world. My message to them is clear and explicit, that you entered military college for one goal, which is to return the right of the oppressed to them and to defend the weak and the oppressed. Therefore, the statement of this country and this continent and that continent are foundations of division between Muslims. Rather, Islam is one country. We are brothers and we are one hand. I hope that you understand my words well and defend the oppressed who are being exposed to this genocide every day. For Palestinians, this is not just a Palestinian issue. They speak of the Ummah and they also speak of humanity. But we must honor their words. The anger on the Arab street is palpable. In the past year, 2 operations were carried out against the occupation at the Karama crossing between Jordan and the occupation. And they were both by former Jordanian soldiers. And I want to add here, for those who try to sow division between Palestinians and Jordanians, they were both Jordanians from the Jordanian tribes. And one of them was actually just a few days ago. It is likely that many hundreds were thwarted by the Jordanian security services. And at the Rafah crossing, 2 serving Egyptian soldiers were martyred in a firefight with the occupiers. In the aftermath of their martyrdom, Middle East Eye published a report with the headline, "My blood will go in vain. Egyptian soldiers say their country has failed Gaza." Here are a few powerful quotes that capture their outrage. "It is painful to know that you can help, but you are shackled and cannot help rescue your people from being slaughtered." Your people. This is an Egyptian soldier talking. "We train day and night and repeat marching chants against the Zionist enemy. And we hear dedicated newsletters bragging about how ready the military is. But when this enemy is killing thousands of our brothers, we sit idle." And in another, "If the government continues to be apathetic, the soldiers will not be able to restrain themselves from firing at the enemy, like the martyr Muhammad Salah." They're referencing a soldier, Egyptian soldier, who carried out an operation against the Israelis before the genocide where he killed 3 soldiers. Earlier this year, Jordanian protesters called on the army of Karama to respond to the genocide. This is an honorable name given to the Jordanian army for their famous victory under the command of General Mashhur Hadith al-Jazi against the Israelis in 1968, after he bravely broke the chain of command from King Hussein of Jordan. It is worth noting that the Jordanian intelligence arrested those who had led those chants. Even in the face of the Israeli occupation attacking 7 countries in the region, most recently Qatar and also the waters of Tunisia, the Arab and Muslim regimes responded with yet another summit and yet more empty words of condemnation. The current regimes in the region are part and parcel of the occupation. They are the real IDF. They're actually the IDF because the ones that they call the IDF are the IOF. They're the ones carrying out the genocide. But the ones protecting their backs are the IDF. They're the Arab regimes. They are the real Iron Dome. And I mean this literally. They will shoot down missiles and drones directed at the genocidal occupation. So how do we find ourselves in this sorry state of affairs? How is it possible that the Muslim world of 2 billion, that the people of Gaza call upon, are unable to respond? One that possesses not only military might, but is abundant in resources. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said, "Spain, as you know, doesn't have nuclear bombs, aircraft carriers, or large oil reserves." Undoubtedly, it sent a subtle yet stinging message about the Muslim world's failure. It is a true indictment of the abandonment of Gaza, and it reminded me of a viral video that was viewed no less than 6.5 million times on Instagram, with the words, "It will be remembered that Pakistan was a nuclear power, yet it couldn't provide a single atomic bomb for Palestine. Egypt had the Nile River, but Gaza died of thirst. Saudi Arabia and the UAE had oceans of oil, but hospitals and ambulances in Gaza ran out of fuel. Muslims had more than 5 million soldiers, heavy artillery, missiles, fighter jets, but none could reach Gaza to provide aid." Last week, the Greek Orthodox Patriarch of Jerusalem gifted President Erdogan of Turkey a copy of the Omri Covenant. This is the covenant that was given by the second caliph of the Muslims, Umar al-Khattab, to the Christians of Jerusalem, giving them assurances that their churches, their religious practices, and their lives would be protected. It surely did not escape Erdogan that the Patriarch was delivering a deeply symbolic message, that you are bound to protect us as your forefathers once did. And I take you back to 1917, when Palestine was last defended against occupation, and that was the Ottoman defenders. The Ottomans held Gaza with courage for 7 months in 3 battles, but they were finally overrun in November 1917. And it should be noted that they were overrun in the 1st of November, and on the 2nd of November, the Balfour Declaration was made. At that time, 14% of Palestinians were Christian. So it just gives you some indication of what life existed for 4 centuries under Ottoman rule. Right from the outset of the occupation in 1948, the Arab armies were thwarted from acting. After their initial victory in Jenin in 1948, the Iraqi army sought to march on to liberate Haifa under the command of Omar Ali Bayaktar, but they were prevented. And this story is very personal to me because when my dad was made a refugee from Qanir near Haifa, he lived under the Iraqi army for 2 years in Jenin. So he has a very soft spot for the Iraqi army living under their protection. The general famously wanted to liberate Haifa, but he was prevented from doing so. And women used to sing a song, Shlono Saleh Zaki, Mako Amr, Mako Amr. What's wrong with you, Saleh Zaki? Why do you not give the order to fight? And Saleh Zaki was a commander in the Iraqi army. The pattern of betrayal was repeated several times, most notably in 1967 and in the 1973 wars. So when we call for military intervention, we are not jumping on a trend. This is and was the only response to the occupation. What was taken by force will only be returned by force. When we call for military intervention from the region, we must not be deluded into believing that the regimes will act. Our militaries have been commandeered by hostile forces from within, who are directed by foreign powers. The people are truly aware of this. In recent protests on the streets of Jordan, they shouted, "Forgive us, O people of Gaza, but we are also under siege." We are calling on the military to rise above the diktats of their regime and forge a new political reality. We must not underestimate our impact in calling for military intervention today. If it was not through our collective mobilization globally, we would not have been able to smash the Zionist narratives in the wake of the 7th of October and replace it with a global call for the liberation of Palestine. If you imagine we were silent at the time that the global media, the establishment media, the politicians were selling their narrative. If we were silent, they would have succeeded in pushing that narrative. But it was through our collective actions that we smashed that idea. Today I'm going to leave you with 4 action points. 1, direct your call to the Muslim militaries. Whether you're Muslim or non-Muslim, direct your call to the Muslim militaries. Consider any personal links you can leverage. Family, friends, acquaintances, anyone online. If you speak Arabic, Urdu, and Turkish in particular, consider how you can seize this opportunity. They will undoubtedly be moved by the words in the Quran, وَمَا لَكُمْ لَا تُقَاتِلُونَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَالْمُسْتَضْعَفِينَ مِنَ الرِّجَالِ وَالنِّسَاءِ وَالْوِلْدَانِ الَّذِينَ يَقُولُونَ رَبَّنَا أَخْرِجْنَا مِنْ هَذِهِ الْقَرْيَةِ الظَّالِمِ أَهْلِهَا وَاجْعَلْ لَنَا مِنْ لَدُنْكَ وَلِيًّا وَاجْعَلْ لَنَا مِنْ لَدُنْكَ نَصِيرًا. And what is it with you? And this is a verse that Sister Shazia mentioned, that you do not fight in the cause of Allah for oppressed men, women and children who cry out, "O Lord, deliver us from this land of oppressors. Appoint for us a savior, appoint for us a helper, all by your grace." One of the things that Gaza has taught me is that we didn't know enough about the reality of Palestine. For example, I was totally unaware that there was 1,000 Christians in Gaza. I was totally unaware that there were 3 churches there. I was totally unaware that the 3rd oldest church in the world was in Gaza. Because if you were to believe the media reports, Hamas is killing all the Christians. But they were living, their churches were protected. But the Israeli entity, in the space of 2 years, have destroyed all those churches and have massacred the Christian population. Number 2, use social media to amplify this call. Make posts, create videos, write. But be sure to tag in the militaries. You can tag in their accounts on X, on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. Do that. Believe me, it's effective. And I just want to give you some examples. I've been doing that right from the first 1 or 2 days of the genocide, by the way. And I had in one case tagged in the Pakistani military, the Turkish, the Egyptian, the Jordanian. And then a Malaysian soldier writes under my post, he comments, he goes, "Have you forgotten about the Malaysian army?" And I thought, how sincere. This man, thousands of miles away, and he says, "But I've got responsibility." And by the way, I've had interactions with Turkish, Jordanian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi military personnel, retired or serving. So don't believe the lie being told to you that they're all part of the regimes. Believe me, they feel the anger like we do. Number 3, reach out to journalists, scholars, imams, social media influencers, and ask them why they're not calling for the correct solution, and pressure them to do so. The time is for military intervention. No amount of boycotting, no amount of charity is going to stop this genocide. I'm not saying we shouldn't do those things, and I do those things myself, but you need to be calling for the right solution. It's like you've got a doctor who has a patient who's dying on their table, and he goes, "Don't worry, I'm going to give you some paracetamol and some painkillers." You're not dealing with the issue at hand. We're bleeding to death. And I'll give you one example of a journalist who did rise to that challenge recently. On a recent interview in Doha at the Arab Summit, Al Jazeera interviewer Osama bin Javid from Pakistan challenged the Deputy Prime Minister of Pakistan, Ishaq Dar, in response to the minister stating that he is a member of the Ummah. That means I'm a member of the Muslim community. And the journalist was very quick to say, "You're not just an ordinary member of the Ummah, you are representing Pakistan. You are the top diplomat of the only nuclear-armed Muslim country." Putting him in his place. That's what we need our journalists to do, not allow these ridiculous statements from our politicians. Number 4, make your protests meaningful. Protest at embassies, call on the armies at the national demos. This creates a strong public opinion which resonates far beyond the Western capitals in which we do them. The tide is turning. Don't be fooled by their desperate distractions like today's colonial theatre announcing a Palestinian state by the very same founders of the Jewish entity, especially as the genocide continues unabated. While they're funding and supporting a genocide, people are getting happy about them declaring a Palestinian state. Let's not be fooled anymore. The Zionist project has been fully exposed. The world order which shields it has lost all credibility. We must push on for military intervention and the full liberation of Palestine like never before. And I leave you with very powerful words from the hero, the martyr Anas al-Sharif, where he said, "I entrust with you Palestine, the jewel in the crown of the Muslim world and the heartbeat of every free person in the world." Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.